Oh yeah, this time, make sure my microphones are up.
Yeah.
Instead of talking for 10 minutes and then realizing that you have your microphones muted. Dun, dun, dun. Alright, let's see where we're at. Hey, cool Sora, how you doing? How's it going, everybody? I'm Drifty from Driftwood Gaming, and I'm joined by my lovely wife, T.
Hello.
She's over there working on beatbox soundtracks.
Yeah.
I keep telling her that she should put together a pack and sell it on itch. She's been making music like crazy. So yeah, this game is looking pretty good now. I think I've made huge progress over the last few days. Right now, I spent yesterday making this sprite you see here in the style of the Crystallis game from NES, Crystallis on the NES, and I spent today trying to get the hitboxes working right and working on like an animation and stuff for the hitboxes, and now it actually works right, and it does more damage when I have the sword on. We also get hit, we get knocked back if we get hit. You can see we're getting knocked back. I'm going to add sound effects. We're losing hit points too when we do get hit. I had some problems where they would knock me through the wall, but I fixed that this morning. So I fixed the collision by reducing the knockback length from 20 to 8, which is half of the collision box. So I still have a little bit of a seizure effect when I run into the wall. To the left, it doesn't seem to be doing it, and let me see if I do it, check it from the right. If I run into it from the right, it does have a seizure from the right and to the up, but not down or left, so I'm not sure what's causing that to happen. Do you plan to do damage sprites for when you get hit, or just the jump back? No, there's going to be more sprites. I'm going to be doing that today. I literally just made this little attack sprite, or attack animation you see at the end of the sword, like right before I went live. And I'm going to do more stuff like that. So particle effects and practical pixel animation as well. So plus sound effects when you get hit, but the sound effects and music will be at the end. I'm going to do lots of flashy stuff. So yeah, that's not the final. This is all work in progress. The game is only like 5 days old, and I've already got like so many core functions in the game. I almost have a core game loop where you can, level up and gear up and whatnot. But right now it's just mechanical changes, and I got the UI set up. I can cheat in some stuff and get experience and whatnot just to see how it works and how it looks. I'm going to add more items, but right now I don't need to add more items because the player will just start with a broadsword. Or actually, they'll probably start with nothing, and then they'll get the broadsword, and then eventually get the longsword and whatnot. And I'll make the right click will be special attacks that take AP. What I want to do is, you can see in our status menu, it shows our HP and our MP and our level and our experience and all that, stats and whatnot. But what I want to do is have a GUI over here that shows our health and maybe these 3 bars can be at the top. Or I think on the left-hand side makes more sense, because since we're doing a 16:9 aspect ratio, we've got a lot more extra space on the left and right. Not as much as we have as going. We don't have as much up and down as we do going left and right. So instead of putting GUI elements going across the top or the bottom, I'm going to put GUI elements on the left side or the right side. I'm thinking left side. And yeah, so I'm going to make some bars right here. I'm going to work on that, and then I'm going to add more sprites for when you get hit, making animations, and I'll show you how I go about doing that. If you have any questions about the project or you want to see code, let me know. Otherwise, I'm not going to jump into spaghetti code unless it's asked for, or I'm actually coding it at the time. But yeah, collisions are in. There's player knockback, and the knockback doesn't knock me through the collisions, which was a problem I was having. The enemies have AI, and I know I'm going to design enemies' AI differently. And all the enemies are being affected by a parent enemy object. So I really can put a lot of detail into designing one of the enemies, just the parent object, and then feed that as like the base code to every enemy. So it really eliminates a lot of the copy pasting that I have to do as far as the enemy type. So this lets me have a ton of different enemies, which is going to be great. Cool Sort of 7, thanks for joining me. Chibi Evil, thank you so much for joining me. Skepsis D, thanks for coming by. Nick Sent, hello. Rodrigo Antonio, thank you so much. Yes, Brazil, hello my brother, how you doing? Hello from New York. How's it hanging in Brazil? How you doing over there, my man? Let's do some work on the project. I just wanted to show it off at the beginning, just to see where it's at. Yeah. I had to do a lot of changes to make this work. I'm using a player state on the player. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much code, but I can show you real quick. So all of the step is handled right here now. So it depends on what state the player's in, and then whatever state the player's in, it runs scripts, and the scripts are what I've been modifying. So that's really cleaned up a lot of the code. And I've made a lot of changes. You can see I've cut out a bunch of code, and instead of just deleting it, I've kind of just graded out in case I have to come back to it, because a lot of the times I've decided to switch the way I'm doing something and then deleted the code, and then I didn't like the changes, so I had to go back and rewrite the code. So from now on, I kind of just comment out the old code that I'm going to take out and then rewrite it. And if I don't like the way that it works after being rewritten, I can comment this out and then take that back and use that. So there's going to be a lot of comments in the code now. So right now, this is our enemy object that's got the placeholder, and all of the other enemies will inherit from this parent object. So it gives me a lot of control, lets me decide what happens all the way through every step of the enemy. And if I want to override it, I can say the enemy has 100 HP, but if I want a certain enemy to have more than 100 HP, I can simply, let's see, it should have inherited this event. Did it not inherit that event? Did that change something? Let's see what happens. Did I break something now? It was working before that, so let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. So I made it so that you can only get hit every 15 frames by an object. So it doesn't just go boom and hit you 60 times in a second, which is, definitely not what I want. Of course, each object can hit you up to 4 times a second. So if there's 2 objects hitting you, then of course it's going to hit you a lot faster. Boom, boom, boom. Yep, and we lost HP for getting hit, we did damage, and we gained experience. I want to make that GUI next, and I also want to do when you get hit animations, and a few more things for when we swing. And what was the other thing I wanted to do? Oh, I wanted to draw the numbers. I actually want to add a draw step to the parent object. So on the enemy object, we're going to add the enemy parent, we're going to add a new event, the draw event. And right here, we're going to show damage numbers. So I'm going to do some simple stuff here. Draw, set, font. And we'll make a new font for this, for the numbers. So let's find a good font. Hello, Alexander Burkell. How are you doing? Welcome to Driftwood Makes Zelda. Essentially, yeah. But more of a Crystallis. I'm taking a lot of inspiration from the NES game Crystallis, if you've ever played it. We can go with this one. It's the same one that's in the GUI. Let's go with that for now. And we'll call it font damage. And maybe make it kind of small. I don't know, let's try 12 at first. So we're going to set our font to the damage font. We're going to draw set color to see red. So it shows that it's dealing damage. Draw. I guess we're going to do draw text shadow, which is the script we put in, and pass in x minus sprite index dot x divided by 2. Is that how it works? And then we'll say y minus sprite index dot y divided by 2. I don't know if that'll work. We'll try it though. Might crash. And then the string that we're going to be putting in here is the damage. So when the enemy gets hit, we're setting, we're subtracting enemy HP. Oh, you know what I should do is set the formula for when the enemy gets hit. So I'm going to say, I'm not going to use a variable, so I won't put it here. I'll put it on the create, and we'll put, this is the damage that the enemy does, but we'll say player damage formula, and that's stored on the menu. Let me check this, because I probably already called it that. Attack damage formula. So we'll reference the menu's attack damage formula. So attack, did I say player attack damage formula? O menu dot player attack damage formula equals well, actually I don't need to set it here if I'm going to use it like that. Inside of here, oh, it's just attack damage formula, which I am referencing here. So I need to take this, actually. This is the thing I need to take. And I can use a, well, if I use a var, I can't use it. Final damage equals 0 to start. That way I can say final damage equals this entire thing, not that. Put this right here. And that lets me take this out and just type in final damage over here, and it looks cleaner. But what that also lets me do is reference final damage inside this event. Is what I wanted to do. So on the draw, I can say draw final damage. But I have to say string so that it knows I'm just drawing it as text. Final damage. And then the color, see red, which means I don't actually need to set the color if I'm going to use it like this. See red. And the shadow color, see black. Intensity 0.9. Distance 2. Direction 315. Just to the bottom right. So right now it's just going to keep drawing that, but I need to make a condition to toggle this on and off. So I'll make a switch that turns on with an alarm that turns the switch off as well. So when we subtract the damage, we're going to also toggle a switch. We'll say enemy hit. Actually, because I have a script called that, I'm going to say enemy was hit equals true. And I'll have to define that over here. So at the beginning I'll say enemy was hit equals false. And it's turned on right here. So now we can tell when the enemy was hit, but we also need to turn that back off so the enemy can get hit more than one time. So what we'll do is, at this point, when the enemy was hit, we'll also set an alarm. So alarm, let's do 8 equals 10 frames, I guess. If I do, let's do 15. So this makes it so that the enemy can only get hit 4 times in a second, at the most. I wonder though, yeah, I mean, I would have to do this only when this condition, because I mean, it feels redundant that I'm doing it like this, and for now, I mean, it probably is, but for now it works, and I'm going to leave it like this. I'm not having any problem with optimization yet, and that's a thing I've learned. Don't worry about optimization until it becomes a problem, you know, until, don't preemptively worry about optimization, like, try to optimize your code as much as possible, but if you don't think you're writing it the most optimal way, don't worry about it. Write it the way that it works, and if it's not optimal, and if it's not optimized enough, then you can work around and spend time on it then, and worry about it then. So that's what we're going to do. We set an alarm for alarm 8, so we also need to make an event to what happens when alarm 8 is triggered. So we're going to say enemy was hit, turn toggle. So we can just say enemy was hit equals false again. So after 15 frames, the alarm goes off and it turns the enemy was hit flag off so that it no longer shows that. And we can use this switch as when the thing is going to be drawn. The damage. So we'll encapsulate that. We'll say if enemy was hit, draw the text. And I'm not sure if this code will work right here. I want it to be at the top left, actually just above it, so we don't actually need to do this. We could just say X. So X would be center, but then the Y would be split in half so that it would be drawn above it. It subtracts, and that would raise it up Let's see if we crash. Let's hit an enemy and see if we actually crash. Oh, you know what? Because we added a draw to the enemy, we actually have to type in draw self. Otherwise, it won't draw itself. Because there's an invisible draw layer on all objects if you don't include it. So now they're there. It crashes. Okay. So what is undefined? It can't use sprite index.y. Okay. That's fine. So instead, I'll just say I have an idea. This is still, the draw layer works similar to the step layer. What if we create a var and call it floater. And so var floater equals, we'll call it float text. And I just kind of want this to increment itself. So var float text equals 0, but then it also will have float text plus equal 1, and for 15 frames it'll go up 15 pixels. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll say it's y plus float text. So it should move the text. Instead of just being at the top, it'll start at the center and rise to the top where we want it to be. That might work. There could be another bug. It could crash again. Oh my gosh, it works though. Why does it keep spazzing out though? Huh. I think it's getting hit multiple times in the same frame. It's taking a ton of damage and it's getting hit multiple times. That was kind of cool though. Let's say x minus 16, y minus 16 plus float text. And we'll say float text is plus equals 2, so it goes up farther. In fact, I think the text could be bigger too, so let's open the damage one and change that to 14. And I kind of want to change the text of that as well. Let's just find a better text for that. Ultra bold, kind of like that. Let's go with that. We'll change it. Probably multiple times. Let's see what it looks like now. I still have a bug where the enemy's getting hit too much. So we need to subtract more from the x to put it at the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, actually it's not getting hit more than once a turn. It's just the text is drawing like a bunch of numbers because this is being set. Wait, is it here? Where is it at? The final damage number is being set every frame. Why don't I set it to be what it is at one time, so I can say final damage. Actually, it will say var show text, show damage text equals final damage, and then we insert show damage text. And this is only going to happen, this is going to happen every frame. This is going to do the same thing. It's going to actually do the same thing unless I do it inside a switch. Okay, I see what's happening. This is not what we need, so we'll get rid of that. We'll just put final damage in here. Yep. But instead, we'll do a switch called enemy show hit damage equals false. Switches and variables control everything. Programming, it's just switches and variables. I should make a t-shirt that says programming, it's just switches and variables. Enemy show hit damage. So on the draw, we can say and enemy show hit damage is false. So if the enemy was hit and we're not currently showing the hit damage, then show the hit damage. But what we need to do is, on that alarm where we're saying enemy was hit false, enemy hit delay, it's this one. We also need to turn that one off right here. Enemy hit, no, not delay, enemy damage, enemy, what did I call it? Darn it. Show hit damage. Enemy show hit damage equals false. So we turn it off there. And when do we turn it on? Well, right after we draw it. So we say enemy show hit damage equals true. And it should only draw it once now. It should hit them, deal the damage, show the text once until 15 frames goes up. Okay, so that is happening. 15 frames is very fast. So let's make alarm 7. Alarm 7 equals, let's say 2 seconds. Let's show alarm 7. And alarm. The good thing about all of this is we only have to design this once for all of the enemies, and then they all inherit from this up. So it's so cool. So we can spend our time and design it like perfectly, and then all of our enemies have that code. And we can decide what they use and what they don't use, because you still have to say event inherited, and we can override it even. So this will be like the base of all enemies, and we can spend our time making one amazing base, which I'm really happy about this in GMS2. So this is enemy show hit damage display toggle. And let's take this from alarm 8 out, because that's something different, and then in alarm 7 we put it in here. And so this won't trigger again for 2 seconds, but then it also won't show, like we'll hit him, okay, I know what's going to happen here. It's only going to show the hit damage once every 2 seconds, but just to be sure like it's going to work like I want, I'm going to try it. And it still doesn't do that. Well, that wouldn't work anyway, because we're going to hit the enemies more than once every 2 seconds. Maybe I should make a. No, I like the whole seeing the text damage. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm gonna do this, but I'm also interested in feedback. I have to figure out how I want to do this. I may not need alarm 7 and a switch here. It appears to be only showing it one frame. Oh, right. It's only showing it one frame because it's only going to... I get it. The number changes, and float text is being set to 0 and then 2 every frame. Okay, what I need to do is take float text and put it over here. This will fix one of the many issues that I see in here. Alright, so now we reference float text plus equal 2. And then at the end of this, we also say float text equals 0. No, it's going to do that every frame, isn't it? Yeah, this logic is not going to work. It's just not going to work. Float text is going to ever increase. Let's get rid of enemy show hit damage. And this as a requirement. Why did it work so brilliantly in my head? I was like, yeah. I mean, I could just make an object and create an object. That's going to be much better. Let's do it with another object. So it creates another object above it. But how would that be any different? I definitely have to try a different method because this method isn't working. So let's get rid of the float text as well. Hit on the draw. We got to get rid of this and alarm 7 entirely. Delete alarm 7. And I'm also wondering why the number changes. It should be set, I mean, it's to a formula. Do I have random? Oh, I do have randomness in the formula. Oh yeah, I'm still using float text in here, which is no longer existent. I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so let's see what happens now. I think I am using some variance in there. So like the number is being updated as the variance changes, but like it's only hitting the enemies once, but the number is constantly changing. So I need to like set where it's at in a constant that only gets updated at one point in time, which I can do. I think I figured this one out. I just gotta figure out where to put it. So when the enemy was hit, so after the enemy, unfortunately I have to do this 4 times, don't I? More redundancy. Gosh. So the final damage is calculated. And then this happens when the enemy is hit. So enemy was hit, set to true. And then it turns it back off false. So, in order for the number we show to be the actual number that is represented, I have to go like var underscore final damage. No, because I'm going to reference it, I can't use it as a var, can I? Because the variable is local to the step phase. So I'm going to do final damage and underscore final damage equals 0. Now final damage is always being recalced every frame, which I necessarily don't really have to do that. But I'm going to use underscore final damage to only calculate it when the player was hit. So I think I can optimize this further. I'll go through an optimization pass when it's time for that. Right now it's about getting it functional and working right. But what I'll do is say underscore final damage is equal to final damage here. And then I just subtract the underscore final damage. Now this is only being calculated once during this event. And then it won't be calculated again for 15 frames if the player was hit again, which is what we want. And then we display the underscore final damage, and that should stop the number from showing a new number 60 times a second. It should just show one number. Boom. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So obviously, where is it being set to 0? On the step, it's being set to 0, isn't it? Where is it set to 0? No, on the create, it's set to 0. And inside here, the final damage is being calculated by that, and then this is being set to that. This is being subtracting that, subtracting that, subtracting that. Why is it showing 0 though? I mean, we got rid of it showing 60 numbers a second, but now it's showing 0, which it shouldn't. Oh, because I'm stupid. Because I didn't calculate it. I only calculate it when you hit from the right. So I have to do the same thing. It's the copy this, paste this. Boom. It's usually just little dumb errors like that. Let's save that, hit F5. One damage, one. Now let's get the sword, put the sword on, and we're doing boom, 8, 9, 14, 12, 11, 9, 14, 13. Get them, Damage, 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 damage. Hey, how about that? Let's put a minus on it, right? So on the draw, we'll just say minus, and then a space and a parentheses, and put a plus outside the parentheses, and then it shows the string, so it'll say minus, and then it'll show a space and the actual text. So now it should say minus this much, and in red, so we know it would be HP, or at least the player would infer that. Bang, minus 10, minus 10, minus 11, 13, minus 14, minus 9, minus 10. Now we can see, like, boom, we're actually numbers. I love seeing these numbers. I feel like the text is a little bit big, and it needs to be a little bit to the left more. Let's subtract 32, because I think the font alignment, the text alignment is centered, so it's going to be less than that actually. And then this could be 24. And it's going up with oh, it's not actually doing the float text thing. So how do I do that? I guess the same way. We can say float text. Let's use float text. Set it to 0. And then float text will increase every frame, but then at some point it's set back to 0. I think we'll just say float text 0. More redundancy. Let's do, why not? Float text equals 0. Right here. Oops. And we have to do it inside of this because otherwise the step will just keep setting it to 0 every frame. But you can get hit from 4 different directions because of the way I coded it. So when you get hit, it's set to 0, but then it should increase. So I can control that on the draw, or I can control it here. It'd be better to control it here so you have less on the draw. You only need to be drawing stuff on the draw, really. So what we'll do is, at the top, actually at the bottom, just say floating damage text pop-ups. We'll say float text plus equals 3. So it's just going to keep going up. Well, that's a lot. Let's say 2. I want them to last longer. They only last as long as enemy was hit will last. So if I want the text to display longer, I also need to reduce the amount of times they can be hit. I think I can compromise a little bit on that and set this timer to 20, give me 5 frames more, so that they can only get hit 3 times a second instead of 4 times a second. It's like dot, 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 dot. That's still a lot of hits. I'll gradually increase this. I want the player to be able to wreck stuff, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that gives a little bit more. 1/3 of a second. Just enough to see it. Okay, since it's only going to last so many frames, I can add more to the float value then. So let's say float text plus 5. Hey Jasmine, how you doing? Combat. Yeah. It doesn't feel like they're raising at all. Like, of course they're giving the illusion that the text box is going up because the sprite is actually moving up and down. But I don't think the float text thing is Oh, you know why it's not working? Because I'm not adding the float text here. Smart boy. Smart boy. Now it's going to fly off the screen because I keep increasing it thinking it's not noticeable. That's what happens. Oh, yeah. Subtract float text. And 5 is too much. I think 2 was just about right. Skepsis says, maybe have a damage box on the enemy base that checks for the player hit so it can set the alarm to not show the text again for whatever time frame. I have to read that a couple times to understand it. Hey, look at that. Now it's going up. Boom, boom, boom. Do you think that's too fast? Should I add 1? Should I cut that in half? I kind of like how much it moves. 13, 13. Actually, it needs to be slower. Yeah, I think it needs to be slower. What do you guys think? Should the text pop-ups go less high. Let's try 1.5. That is too fast. Yep. Let's try 1.5 frames a second. Or 1.5 frame pixels a frame. Much different. That feels better. 1 might be too slow, 2 is too fast. I think 1.5 is our sweet spot. Slower and less high, so what about this, 1.5? Or is that too high? Let's try 1, maybe 1.2. Let's try 1. Oh, I already did that thing? Okay, cool. 1 actually feels really smooth. No, that feels good. I think it's 1. Boom, 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 boom. Isn't that awesome? Because now they're mostly centered. Boom, boom. I love seeing the numbers. It's a dumb little thing, but it makes me feel good. I know how much, because it's all based on stats and numbers, and that's like, okay, I want the player to, now let's do the same thing that the player has when he hits an enemy, to when the enemy hits the player. Let's replicate that. So let's start back on the enemy step phase. Right here when the enemy gets hit, and then down here, enemy hits player. So what happens when the player hits the enemy? Should I put a draw phase on the player, or should I put the draw phase? Yeah, I mean, obviously it has to be done on the player. But I'm coding that right here on the enemy because it's... No, it makes more sense to put it on the enemy because the enemy is going to be a parent object of all of the enemies. So I only have to code it for this object if I put it on here, but I have to code it for every enemy object if I put it on the player. So I can reference the player's location from the enemy object, and that's what we'll do. Plus I've already got like the logic set up for when that happens. So I'll replicate the same thing that I'm doing with final damage. Enemy gets hit, final damage, and then I guess I'll have another thing called, I should have specified. This is the enemy hitting the, when the enemy gets hit, is that the player final damage? I need to specify. So player final damage. This is going to make me have to rewrite code. And then I have to do enemy final damage equals 0. And underscore enemy final damage equals 0. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I just have to go in here and type in enemy final damage. I could do Control F, but it'll find both of them because of my brilliant naming convention. Good job. And I went with enemy final damage because the enemy's taking the damage. And so I'll use player final damage over here for when the player gets hit. Now where do I set that up here? Enemy gets hit, this is where player gets hit. Enemy hits player. So at the top I'll specify what's going on inside here and cut this to say enemy or player final damage equals that. It's a long one because it's reducing all of the player reduced physical damage taken, player physical or player defense, and then also the enemy damage formula, which is taking the maximum number between 1 and the rounded enemy damage formula, which is calculated over here, which is a random range between the enemy's attack times 0.8 and 1.2, so a 20% variance on its attack, which is 5 to start, but each enemy I can inherit this, and then underneath the event inherited code I redefine enemy attack, enemy, so all enemies don't have the same stats, they just start with this same slate, and then I can adjust it from there. Okay, so I've set up that, so player HP, we subtract player final damage. And then, inside here, when the player is knocked back, we also can make a switch statement and an alarm. We'll say player was hit. Oh, enemy hit delay will also work. So it'll last as long as enemy hit delay, which we can also increase. Where did I set it? Right here, we'll set it to 20. Alarm 9 is enemy hit delay. That's reset to true. Or it's reset to false in the alarm, and it's set to true at the end. So no matter what direction the player gets hit at, so we only have to draw this once, it'll be on the player. We do a switch. So we say if enemy hit delay, so that means the player got hit. So if the player was hit, we're going to draw, let's copy this actually. And say player final damage, which will be 0 right here because we didn't set that up. So inside here, when the player gets hit, we're going to say that is calculated, and then why do I calculate it outside of a condition? Because I only wanted to calculate it once, and then I reset it to something else. I could get rid of one of these variables, but I'm not worried about that right now. Inside, when the player's already hit, we can do that right here even. We can turn a switch on. Right, no, we don't need the switch, do we? We just need to set... Oh, right, to make it the same number, it'll change every frame. So I actually have to say underscore player final damage is equal to player final damage. Now, even though player final damage is going to be recalculated, it's only going to issue what's inside, like the snapshot of what it was on that frame. And we also need to reference that saying, deal the damage that we're actually going to be showing. So take a snapshot of whatever it's calculated at that frame, and then show that number and deal that much damage. Or deal that damage and then show that number. No, but show that number. I don't know the order, but it's around the same time, in the same frame. Doesn't really matter. 60th of a second, step and the draw is going to happen. I think that's it. I mean, I probably missed something. It might crash. As far as the draw, oh yeah, one more thing. It's going to show this above the enemy, but we want it to be on oPlayer.x and oPlayer.y instead. Okay, let's see if it crashes, and let's fix any bugs. Well, we didn't get very far. Let's see. Enemy 01 player defense is not set for reading. No, that's not it. It's something else. Line 46, minus player final damage equal max 1. Okay, on the enemy, line 46. Player final damage equals that. Did I not set this up here? Player final damage. Player final damage is set to 0. Huh? I don't understand. Like, it's the same code that I've got going on up over here. Oh, I think I know what's happening. Enemy defense. Okay, enemy final damage and enemy defense. I have no idea. Let me look at the error again. Gosh, what? Okay. It's on this event. It's probably the thing we just put in, so. Player final damage. It's trying to read player defense. Oh, player defense. Oh, enemy dot blah blah blah. We have to say oh player dot player defense. No, it's oh menu. Because that's actually stored on the menu. Oh menu dot. It's looking for player defense here and it's not finding it. Because player defense is not stored here, it's stored here on the menu. Player defense. I think, why did it just give me that now? Like that was in there for a while. Maybe it never accessed that code. Let's get hit. Okay. Player final damage is not set before reading it. Underscore player final damage equals player final damage. Oh, do I have to put them in the opposite order? Do I have to go like this? They're both set? That's not it. By this point, they've both been created, and they've also been defined. Player final damage, not set before reading it. Underscore player final damage. Is it a typo? There's probably a typo somewhere. Okay, hold on. Player final damage. It would tell me that this is the only, it would give me a yellow thing, warning if there was. Yeah, it's not that, so let's clean this back up. let's cut this from here and just say we're going to calculate it once we collide and not before. I mean, I obviously have some redundancy in here, which I'm not worried about right now. I just want it to work. Player final damage equals player final. I don't see the bug. Like, it's saying something's not set before reading it. And player final damage is stored here on this object, so I don't have to reference no player. I don't get it, man. What the hell? Oh wait, now it's working? Okay, there's also a draw error somewhere. Oh, I have to reset float. Oh, I want to have two different float tags, don't I? So, I'll say enemy float text, player float text equals 0. So, everywhere I have float text right now, I change it to enemy float text. And just find enemy float text. And when the players hit, we set player float text. And over here, we set this to player float text, and this is enemy float text. What? Now none of the text is working. What? 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 Are you kidding me? Oh God, I didn't change anything. I don't even know why. What? Okay, let's go full screen. Get hit. Oh, it's not invisible. It just keeps rising. It's being drawn. Okay, makes sense. It's just like so. The variable is just, it keeps rising at all times. And it's supposed to be set back to 0. Let's cut this and put this at the front. Player float text 0, and then do this stuff. But then why did it also change the, we had the enemies perfect and we didn't mess with the enemy except for changing the name of enemy float text. But the function, oh, I know what happened. Yeah. I didn't set it to here. Enemy float text. Changing the names of your variables is usually tricky because you better get all of them. All instances of that. Enemy float text, enemy float text, enemy float text. enemy float text. Let me just look for any other instances of float text. Okay. Do we have any yellow warnings? No. That's good, that's good. Okay, let's save it. I think that should have fixed it. There it is. And then what about the player? Okay, the player still doesn't show. So we are in the same spot, basically. If enemy hit delay, why is it not drawing the player's text? Is this not triggering enemy hit delay? So where does enemy hit delay happen? Enemy hit delay happens right here when the player's been hit. Damage is dealt, the player is knocked back, and the switch is on, and it also arms alarm 9, which alarm 9 turns off enemy hit delay, but that's 20 frames. That's a third of a second. It's long enough to see it pop up, but we're not seeing it pop up. So, player float text is set to 0. So that means over here it's saying minus 24 minus 0. And then that triggers once and it's adding to every frame, so it should go from 0 to another 20. Subtracting another 20. It's not like off the screen. And what is it telling it to show? Subtract player's final damage. Even if it can't calculate this, it should still show the minus space. So I have a feeling it's like just drawing it crazy off the screen for some reason. Let me try to go straight for it. Hit me, boom, yep, 0, 0. And it just keeps something is not setting. Oh my gosh, I noticed what's happening. This says with the menu. Player float text is not in the menu. It's not in the menu at all. It's in the enemy object. So we need to put that not with the menu. It's something simple, but I got it. So when it calculates the knockback, right after that, set it to 0, which will be the same frame. So now it should work. It's never being set to 0, so that it just keeps incrementing. So now we should boom, 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 boom. Cool. So it's working. Kind of. Why is it showing 0 but I'm getting hit for 1? Underscore player final damage. So I'm clearly taking damage because my HP was going down, but it was showing 0. Let's get rid of this redundancy here. Let me comment this out and just put in player final damage, because now this is only being calculated. Oh my god, another problem. This is with the menu. I got it. I see what's happening. This with menu means everything in here is looking at inside the menu. I'm stupid. I'm a big stupid boy. All I have to do is take out this with menu BS and reference the menu when I want to reference the menu. And where do I want to reference the menu? Only right here, menu dot player HP minus that. That's all. And the rest of the stuff should work right. I could even put the player float text back up here, but it doesn't really matter. So now we get hit, boom, -1, 1, 1, 1. Yay, it's working. Now let's line it up. Let's fix it. So it's a little bit too much on the X, so let's subtract, or let's add to the X. So we're subtracting 32. Let's change that to 16. And on the Y, I think that's fine, one thing at a time. Yeah, let's do a little bit more. Let's say -8. I also want to try getting hit from multiple angles. That looks good. What about right here? That looks good. What about this way? Looks good. What about down, up, down? What about while I'm attacking? I got it. It's just showing the numbers now for the player and for the, it took a little bit of debugging and fixing common errors, but it works now, and I can see numbers. Let's put on a sword and finish these guys off. Take the real damage. Damage, 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 damage. And they explode. Bang. Boom, 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 boom. Yes! And I got experience. Champion. Sweet. It's getting there, guys. It's like an all-day thing. I work on this project throughout the day, all day, and then little feature by little feature, it gets better and better. PJ Navarro, hello, how are you doing? It's going well. I'm constantly making progress on this. Do I not use RPG Maker anymore? Yeah, I still use RPG Maker. That's true. Oh God! Skepsis. Yeah, it's basically what it is. Just a little break. I had my nose to the grindstone with it for like 4 months, trying to get a good update to the Legend of Driftwood. Links in the description if you want to download it for free. Put a huge patch out for that. It's improved massively from its previous version, and it's something I'm proud of now with RPG Maker MV. And it is my best released game to date, and I'm giving it away for free. So there you go. Download it. Leave a rating. Tell me what you think of it. I'm definitely not done with RPG Maker. I still use it. I haven't used it in a couple weeks, really, besides opening it to help some people look at stuff. But that was it. I put out a game called Spikefaller, partly for a game jam with a there's no score, no prize, it's just like I entered it into a game jam. But also just because I wanted to put a platform game out there using GMS2. I learned a little bit, and then I was like, I want to make another game. It felt really good to release a game, and I don't know, like, I wanted to make an action RPG. Like, I wanted to do something different. And there's a ton of games like Crystallis, like this game, that I grew up playing. Legend of Zelda, for example. Link to the Past was one of my favorite games of all time. Crystallis for Nintendo, one of my favorite games. So I wanted to make something like that, And so yeah, I mean, I use multiple engines, and I advise you to do the same and find what works. No one engine is best for all types of games. Engines, I don't really want to get in the conversation again about which engine's better and blah, blah, blah. It's just figure out what you want to make, and then find the best engine for that thing. Action RPGs on MV is kind of hard, and I would rather do it in GMS2, and that's why I'm doing it in GMS2. That's it. It's simple. Okay, so we got the text to pop up. Really happy about that. We need to add new enemies. Let's go to Aseprite. And let's do a new 32 by 32. Yeah, I guess we'll just pick a palette and let's go like this and make an enemy very quickly. There we go. Let's let's give it a new frame and let's do some weird stuff with him. I like it. Let's change the little squiggles on the top for each frame. Oh, it does. I actually already did that. Let's add like some darker little spots somewhere just to change it up a little bit. Perfect. Let's save this as enemy 002. File, export as a GIF. And then I like that you can import GIFs into GMS2. It's beautiful. So let's go to our sprites, add a new sprite, import, not edit, import. Let's sort by date. Let's put this in the middle center. Call it S, enemy 002. And then we can duplicate enemy 01 and call it enemy 02. Give it this sprite. It's going to inherit alarm 8, inherit drawing this. Let's also open this one and inherit these. So all of these enemies should act the same way as their parent, enemy 00, or object enemy. It should inherit all of these, this create, the step, the alarm, and the draw. And then whatever code I tell it to have as far as like its AI, let's make enemy 2 faster than enemy 1. So I could just say, can I just open all events? Is there a way I can open all events? Why do I have to double click all these events every time? Let's make this one faster. It'll do the same thing. It'll move in a random range for a second. And then after a second, it'll go towards the player for, we'll say this one goes to the player for 3 seconds. And then it goes in a random range for a second. So they don't like make a beeline to the player. They have like a little AI, so they come at the player and then they're distracted, and then they come at the player and then they're distracted. And, that way it's not too incredibly difficult. I'll make enemies that are not distracted. These are lower level enemies. But let's do something else with this guy. Let's make this guy make a projectile at the enemy. So I shouldn't have to do anything now with this guy. Like, he should operate the same way as my other enemies. I should be able to just put him in the map. Obviously, I can make spawners. I'll do that later. But for now, I'm just going to drag and drop some of these on the instance layer. And he'll have the same stats until I overwrite the stats. Obviously, I made him faster. You like my little squiggle purple monster?
I love it.
He waddles.
Looks like a deranged teddy bear.
And since I've already made the code for the enemies, I only have to write what I want them to do that's not already written down. Like, If I want them to have a special behavior, like say I want to have them shoot a projectile at the player, I could write that for these guys. Should probably put on my sword. I'll do a lot more damage. There we go. Mop them up.
Nice.
It feels good. Obviously, it'll be better when we have music and sound effects and more particle effects and sprites, and the enemies behave differently and whatnot. The waddling screech witch. Skepsis says, looking really good now, so much progress in just a short time. Yeah, it's like 5 days old, I think, or 6 days. I don't know exactly, maybe more. The game looks like something from the Nintendo era. That's great. Hey, Boro, how you doing? Magnificent. Yeah, let's give him some custom AI, right? We already changed him so he's faster and he's more focused on the player, but let's have this thing shoot projectiles at the player at a low rate. So first of all, we need a sprite for the projectile. So let's go to S particles and create a sprite. We'll call it S witch, or actually just S witch projectile. Or I'll just call it witch bolt. So let's create a new thing. It will be a 16 by 16. We'll align it to middle center. Go in here and give it, I don't know, 6 frames. We'll use this little circle. Too much. That'll work. Good enough. So we made a sprite called Witch Bolt. Let's make an object inside of animation, and we'll crawl it. Oh, Witch Bolt. We'll assign it that sprite from particles, and we'll say give it some simple code. Enemy projectile, and we'll say its speed is 5, direction equals random range between hold up, point, maybe we'll say point direction. Yeah, we'll use point direction, and inside point direction we'll use random range. So we have to give x1, x1, y1, so 2 directions. We make a vector, and a vector is something from a point to another point. So we'll make a 2D vector. So this got an x and a y. And that'll give us our angle, our direction. So, but we don't want it to always hit the player or even be that accurate. So we got to give it some sort of randomness so that it's not for sure going to hit the player. So we'll say its direction is point to the direction of where it starts. So we can say x, y. It's going to start from this point, but then the random range will be O player dot x minus, I don't know, 45 degrees, and O player dot x plus 45 degrees. So it could be, that's kind of 90 degree. It could be way off. Let's say 30 and 30. So it can have a 60 degree offness. And that's just one point, and we'll give it its y random range as well. Random range of O player dot y minus, we'll say 20, and then O player dot y plus 20. So it's going to throw it in the player's general vicinity. We actually need to do one more, I think. Yeah, so direction, point direction, x, y, and the second thing is a random range between negative 30 to 30, and negative 20 and positive 20 on the x and y. So it's going to move in the player's general direction with a lot of variance. The player will kind of have to run into it. It's kind of fast, right? Speed of 5, the player moves at 2, so it's going to go across the screen fast, but it'll be kind of like bad aim. Just fine. And what else do we need to have with it? We need a step to see if it collides with the player. So we'll make a step, and we'll say on collide if place meeting is x and y, means this object's x and y, and with this object. Then what do we want to happen? Well, we want to destroy this instance, but we also want a particle effect and some damage to happen. So, I guess we have to reference its source, or we just give it a set amount of damage. I'm okay with giving it a set amount of damage for now because it'll make it simple. So we can just say O menu dot player HP minus equals however much we want, 5. That makes it really easy. And which bolt, I mean, it's not physical, not fire, not ice, not lightning, not poison. I suppose we could make it poison damage. So I only have 5 elements. Which bolt could be poison? We'll make it poison. So if we know we're going to give it an element, it makes it a little more complicated, but it's not that hard. What we can say is equals, well, we have to say the minimum amount, take the max number between 1 and 5 minus O menu dot player reduced poison damage taken. But we also have to take that entire thing and round it. So we're going to round, or maybe we put the round first and then max that. Take the max value. It won't matter which way I actually do that. So we're going to round the max value of whatever is higher, 1 or 5 minus the player's reduced poison damage taken. So at the least, it's going to hit for 1 damage. And that'll work, but it won't show a -5 yet. So we have to add a draw. So let's make a draw. show the damage. And we're going to say if, let's look at enemy. Maybe I can do a quick copy paste off of enemy. This is enemy 1, which will keep the stats the same. And then enemy 2, do I want to add anything else? We can give his stats, let's give him higher stats, let's give him 10. He's got 10, but he also gives 30 experience. And he had, well, the same HP, should be fine. You're going to deal a lot less damage to it because he's got more defense. Anything else that I want to happen here right now? I mean, I'm going to be setting up another thing on this enemy to spawn the object witch bolt. Gosh, come on. No, we could reference is the enemy's attack power but what if I want to give this move to another creature? It's going to reference this enemy's attack power. Oh, I know what I can do. When I create it, might as well do this. So inside the alarm, I could have it trigger right with the alarm and make it simple. I'm trying to figure out when I want them to shoot the bolt. Let's go ahead and have them on the alarm do this. So when it moves to the player, it's going to spawn it. So we'll say instance create layer, create it right here on X, on Y, and on the attack layer. The object we're creating is O witch bolt. And that's all that needs to happen. Well, actually, one more thing. We can say witch bolt, we'll say O menu. Well, actually, we can handle this in the data manager. We'll say O data dot witch bolt caster equals O enemy 002. And now I can reference in the witch bolt itself what caster, which enemy is using the witch bolt. Jesus. So let's go ahead and add witch bolt caster to let's go ahead and add witch bolt caster to the data object. Witch bolt caster equals it needs a default, so I'll just default each one of these to the first one who uses it. So we'll say object enemy 02. I mean, right now I could just say enemy 02 inside of here, but I want to be able to use this spell, I guess, this skill, on multiple enemies in the future. So I want them, and I also want to reference the magic attack power of that enemy, and specifically that enemy. But how do I do that? Well, I have to make a variable that stores the name of the enemy, so I can reference witch bolt caster as the enemy, and then dot enemy magic attack. So now that I have that, instead of just saying 5, I say witch bolt caster, well actually O data dot which bolt caster dot, I think this will work. Or no, I don't want to put it in data because then I'm referencing this into that. But I am curious if it will work. I don't know if it will, but I know I should move this off and just put it inside of this object itself. Makes more sense. Okay. Enemy magic attack. Will that work? I'm curious. Minus the menus, player reduced poison damage taken, and I could also say this, minus O menu, since it's now a magic attack, magic defense will come into play. Dot player magic defense. So it'll basically be 10 minus the player's defense at this point, but if you have something that reduces poison damage, it'll reduce it. If you increase your magic defense, it'll decrease the damage, etc. If this doesn't work, this is accessing an object variable, which is accessing an object. So, I mean, there's a lot of, what's it called? There's a lot of something in there, gosh, where the objects are linked together. So, okay, now I need to draw it. Like, it's going to do that damage, and it's a variable that will change depending on the strength of the enemy that's casting it. That's great, but it still doesn't show a number. So let's go to the draw of the base enemy and look at how we're drawing the damage, because that's where we're actually drawing the damage. So we're using a switch. We're using enemy hit delay. Let me copy this. Now, enemy hit delay is going to be local to this, and it's being controlled inside of here. Not sure how I want to do it. So wait, it's using the draw the same, but we're going to add another thing. We can't use enemy hit delay. Enemy, I have to define it in here. Maybe in here. No, not here. What am I doing? Cut it here. On the which bolt. We'll say which bolt casted equals true. So if which bolt casted is false, then do that. And on the step, when it does this, can say which bolt casted. Hold up, we should use which bolt landed and start it by false. Which bolt landed is set to false, but then when it hits the player, which bolt landed is set to true. When this object is destroyed, it will also destroy its draw. So maybe which bolt landed should be on data as well. That way it'll stick around. Okay. And we have to say, data dot which bolt landed is true. So the player gets hit, it does this thing, which bolt landed is true, and we don't draw it here. We don't. We cut it off because this will be destroyed. So this happens, which bolt landed is true. We're going to instance destroy this. We also need to do another check over here. We're going to say if this object goes outside of the room, out of bounds, we need to immediately instance destroy. So if it's out of the room, it's gone. That way it doesn't just keep flying to infinity, taking up resources. And now it's a simpler event. More simple event. It's going to have this speed, that direction. This might cause a crash here, accessing data, which bolt caster. If it does, I can just put which bolt caster on itself, which will be fine. So I'm going to leave this open because we're currently working on it. So on this enemy is where we can have an additional draw. So if data dot which bolt casted is true. Is it casted, or did I change it to landed? Landed. Look at data. Landed. So when it is true, did I set it to true somewhere? Which bolt landed is true? Yeah. So when it is true, then it draws this text. We also need to reset the player float text to 0 at that point, which is stored on the enemy. God, things are so intertwined. Enemy dot player float text equals 0. And we have to reference, wait, no, this is taking from enemy, so that's fine. And we're not showing this, we're showing a different number. We actually have to store this into another variable. That's right. We need another variable. We're going to call this one which bolt damage equals 0 to be initialized. And then we can say which bolt odata dot which bolt damage equals all of this, and then you say player HP minus equals odata dot which bolt damage. Spell it right though. Now we can reference that number. So we don't need a draw on this because we're not drawing anything on it. So let's get rid of that, clean it up. So we have a create where we give it a speed and a direction. We may have to give it the which bolt caster right here or something. So we don't have to reference a data, which is, we don't have to reference data, which is an object that's referencing a variable that's inside that variable stored the name of another object. Obfuscation, I guess, is the word. Okay, I think that, I mean, we're probably going to crash, to be honest, because then this is going to crash us. I don't know for sure. Didn't give me an error, though, but it probably will. Now we need to go back to the draw. On this, we're going to also put in here OData dot which bolt damage. And that's the number. And instead of red, I'm going to put it in green. In fact, should I change the red to white or gray to show it's like physical damage? And then red would be fire damage? I think I want to do that. Let's go to the actual enemy and change the color inside the draw from red to white for regular damage, white damage, and then red will be fire and green will be poison. And we crash. No, we don't crash. Oh my god, we're getting shot at. Check that out. Whoa, we're getting shot at. I'm gonna stand still and see if they hit me. Boom, boom, and the text. Okay, the text isn't reset. I think those -5s are like just. It just keeps going. -5 forever. Okay, is it dealing damage? Let's see. Oh yeah, it absolutely is. 63. Boom, 53, because we both got hit by 5 times 2. Bang, bang. Their aim is pretty good, actually. I'm going to make their aim worse. I was probably right with my first guess of 45. I'm so happy that it just worked right off the bat. The only bug we had was the text just kept going up. Well, that sucks, poor OV. Oh, okay, because I'm not subtract. Wait, hold on. What? Minus player. Oh yeah, player flow data. We need to reset player float text on the witch bolt. Enemy dot player float text. Oh, they're not inheriting that at that point. So what if I take this off of here? Can I? No, because the draw will be set. Oh, I'll put it on the alarm. So when we create right before we create it, actually, right there, it's set to 0. Of course, it's still going to take an amount of time to get to the player, and it'll already be higher at that point. Okay, we have to have some way to set the float text. Oh, when it collides with the player. Well, that's what we did over here. But because we're changing the parent object, not the object itself, what if I go like this? I can reference player float text on the data instead of the enemy. So all instances of OEnemy.playerFloatText need to be changed to OData.playerFloatText, and that will be a consistent value that they can all check. So let's do that. OData.playerFloatText on the data manager. Player float text equals 0. And we'll say enemy float text equals 0. We'll do the same thing. It makes sense to do that on the data manager instead of on the enemy parent, actually. So I need to get rid of them here. For now, I'll just comment them out to remind me that they were here. So this is odata.playerFloatText. Let me just do a search for player float and find it. Odata dot. Is there any more? That's it here. What about enemy float? Odata dot enemy float. Odata dot enemy float. Okay. And right here I reference odata.playerFloatText and then odata.enemyFloatText. And on this step, right. This might cause another problem, but I'm going to see what happens. Am I referencing player float text anywhere else? It'd be on draws and on the enemy. So that, let's check all the draw. Not on here, actually. On here. Odata.playerFloatText. And now I can actually code it so that when it's colliding with the player, it sets it to 0. Because it was working, but it was setting the parent object's value to 0 and referencing the child object, which wasn't a 0 anymore. Let's see what happens. Boom, boom. Wow. Oh no. Everything is just showing 5 and going up at crazy fast speeds. I broke it. Alright. Each new level of complexity introduces a new problem. I got it in the stream right here, but I'm going to go through this and fix this right now. Thank you guys so much for coming to the live stream. I really appreciate it. If you want to play the last game that I put out, links in the description below. I put 3 games on itch. They're all free to download and play. Let me know what you think. If you want to come hang out, we have a Discord server. The link is in the description below. If you like what we do here and want to support us, we have a Patreon page. It's patreon.com/driftwoodgaming. All support is appreciated. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like this channel, you want to see more like it, more videos like this, more live streams, just subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. I stream 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to continue working on this project. It's sort of like my thing that I'm doing right now. I don't know, like I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. Very nostalgic, because it's like I'm playing Crystalis, but I'm also making Crystalis at the same time. Thank you guys for coming to the live stream. Appreciate it. SkepsisD, awesome. You can follow me on Twitter. I post Twitter updates with GIFs of the game's progress. Thank you so much for coming to the live stream. SkepsisD, Jeremiah Black, Boro B, Cool Sora 07, PJ Navarro. Anybody who's lurking, Chibi Evil, Jasmeek, Rodrigo Antonio, Alexander Burkell, Nick Sint, and anybody else who's lurking. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.